For today's project we're going to paint the Primaris Lieutenant. I've started off with a white undercoat followed by using fenrisian grey to cover the main armoured areas. Next, for the under armour, because the primary armour is quite light in colour, I've used Mechanicus standard grey first for those under armour areas. This is followed by using null oil in these areas afterwards to give a darker colour next to the otherwise light colour of the armour. Next, a 50-50 mix of Armour medium and rust grey was applied into the recesses to give a bit of depth into the armoured areas. Now for areas like the cloth and pouches and holsters, I wanted these areas to be red, but I wanted to keep it dark to give a contrast from the light colour of the armour, so corn red. These red areas are now having Bugman glow applied to pick out some of the edges and highlights, and this is the last colour we're using for the red areas of the miniature, which is Carroburg Crimson, and again this will further darken down this area of the miniature. Going back to the grey parts of the armour, wulfen grey was applied to the edges of these areas to pick out some of the detail, followed by some white scar. The white scar was used in a smaller amount just to pick out the very tips of the edges. Various silvers were used in the metallic areas, and after the silvers had time to dry, a null oil was applied to those areas, especially in recesses. For this part of the weapon I started off with Uriel yellow first, covering the whole area. Once this is dry, the rectangles were painted with phalanx yellow, and then dawn yellow was applied around the edges of those rectangles. For the small nodes on the front of the weapon, they were painted with moot green first, and once that was dry, a 50-50 mix of Armour medium and warpstone glow was then applied over that area as a wash. For the larger green area it was done in reverse, so the warpstone glow was applied first, and then moot green with the Armour medium was applied afterwards. And the very end of the weapon had Balthazar gold on for the muzzle. Uriel yellow was used on the shoulder pad, as that's the darkest yellow I've got, and I want to try and darken the miniature down. And Gehenna's gold was applied first into the golden areas, which takes a couple of coats to build up the initial gold. And then Ulrich armour gold was applied next. Once the gold paints were dry, I then used aggregate shade over all of the gold areas. The reason why I've done it this way and I've put the darkest colour last is it helps therefore to tone down the gold further, rather than using the dark colours and then applying the highlights making it look brighter. I want to try and keep the miniature dark where I can. For the purity seals, the wax part was painted with corn red, and the parchments were painted initially with Upshabti bone, followed by pallid witch flesh going down the edges just to pick out the edges slightly, and lastly a 50-50 mix of Abaddon black and null oil was used for the writing on the areas. If you like the video, remember to subscribe to help the channel, and also send links to your friends.